Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something pretty fundamental for any big organization, really.
Hmm.
How do you actually navigate those massive, unavoidable changes? Shifting customer views, global crises, all that stuff. And our source material today gives us this really fascinating real-world case study. Lets us unpack how one major company adapts, maybe even thrives.
Yeah, what we're diving into is excerpts from Woolworths, Navigating Change and Sustainability. It's quite a contemporary case study. And it gives a pretty detailed look at how one of Australia's biggest retailers has handled several pretty significant shifts. There are some really practical insights in there about strategic adaptation.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive anyway is to get a handle on the strategies, the impacts of managing really substantial organizational change. We'll do that by looking closely at Woolworth's approach, especially, I think, their environmental stuff and how they reacted to some, well, truly unprecedented challenges. What I'm really keen to figure out is how does a company like Woolworths, at that scale, balance all the public pressure, a genuine commitment to being green, and let's be honest, the bottom line. I mean, just think about it. They were giving out 3.2 billion lightweight plastic bags a year. That's the kind of scale we're starting with here. Huge. Okay, so let's start unpacking that first big challenge. The plastic bags. Our sources show Woolworths faced, well, immense public pressure. It wasn't just a background noise. There was this big social media campaign, #BanffBag. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It got over 170,000 signatures, all pushing for statewide bans on single-use bags across Australia. That's a pretty loud voice to deal with.
It is. And what's interesting here is how proactive Woolworths was in response. So back in July 2017, they announced a nationwide ban, not just supermarkets, but Big W, BWS stores too. All single-use plastic bags. They didn't just wait for every state government to force their hand. They started phasing them out, leading to a total ban in 2018. And they offered, fabric or reusable plastic bags you could buy instead.
Right.
And this move, it actually brought their stores in New South Wales, Victoria, WA, the big states, into line with places that already had bans, like the ACT, Northern Territory, South Australia, Tasmania. Queensland followed suit in 2018 as well.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how a move like that, which starts from public pressure, can also have this, well, potential financial upside.
Yeah.
We often think of green initiatives as just, extra costs.
Mm-hmm.
But the sources suggest this ban was actually expected to cut costs and maybe even improve net profit for Woolies, which is pretty significant when you remember they'd reported that big loss, what was it, $1.24 billion in 2015-16?
Yeah, that was a tough year for them.
And they also thought it might help sales, which had been sort of sluggish before that. How did they actually manage to turn that pressure into a potential win?
Well, what really stands out is that it wasn't just about compliance. It seemed like a strategic opportunity for them. Woolworth's decision, it showed they were listening to customers, taking environmental responsibility seriously, or at least wanted to be seen that way.
Right.
And by getting ahead of the curve, aligning with those changing consumer values, they probably boosted their brand loyalty, maybe attracted shoppers who cared more about ethics. And the numbers seem to back it up. The financial outcomes suggest it worked. Profits went up from $1.53 billion in 2017 to $1.72 billion in 2018, then jumped again to $2.69 billion in 2019.
Wow.
And sales for most of their operations anyway increased over that time too. So it indicates that, taking that environmental lead could actually line up pretty well with strong financial performance. It's a classic example of sort of stakeholder thinking in action.
That is compelling. And yeah, I definitely remember that initial feeling at the checkout, the, oh no, I forgot my bags moment. It was a real societal adjustment, wasn't it?
It really was.
So just as Woolworths was navigating that huge plastic bag shift, something completely different hit them. By early 2020, bam, the COVID-19 pandemic, and this massive, sudden change in how everyone shopped.
Yeah, talk about a pivot. And that really raises questions about, organizational resilience, agility. Over just the first 6 months of 2020, Woolworths rolled out this whole suite of measures. Right across their store network, they put up clear screens at the checkouts, remember?
Right.
Shut every second checkout for the 1.5-meter distancing, hand sanitizer stations everywhere. They even introduced these special health and safety ambassadors in stores.
I don't remember seeing those.
And of course, limits on how many people could be inside at once. The speed they did all that and the scale of it was pretty remarkable, actually.
And all those rapid, widespread changes, they definitely had an immediate hit on the finances. Woolworths reported a profit of $1.6 billion for the full 2020 financial year, which sounds like a lot, but it was actually down 1.2% from 2019.
Right.
So it's pretty clear those increased running costs for all the COVID safety stuff, plus having their pubs and hotels shut down by the government, it directly squeezed their earnings. But what about sort of the longer view? Did things bounce back?
Well, yes. If you look at the recovery afterwards, it really does paint a picture of underlying strength, operational resilience. Profits improved quite a bit in 2021. They reached $1.92 billion for that full financial year.
Okay.
So a definite increase from the 2020 result. And sales for most parts of the business also went up. It shows they could adapt really fast and get back on track, even after such a huge global shock. Suggests they had a pretty robust, underlying setup. Supply chain, infrastructure.
Okay, so moving beyond that immediate crisis response, let's look at Woolworth's sort of ongoing efforts around single-use plastics. It clearly wasn't just a one-off thing with the bag ban. Seems like a continuous sustainability journey. What other specific steps have they taken since then?
Exactly. It wasn't just bags. They've rolled out several other initiatives since then, all aimed at cutting their plastic use. Things like removing plastic straws from sale altogether,
Right.
replacing those plastic cotton tips with paper and sugarcane ones, and quite significantly, taking plastic out of their own brand product packaging.
Hmm.
The stuff sold under the Woolworths label. That covers really high volume things like meat trays, milk bottles, fruit and veg packaging.
That's a big one.
Yeah. And they also got rid of single-use plastic cutlery, cups, bowls, and plates from their general merchandise range.
The scale of that is, well, it's genuinely impressive when you add it all up. These ongoing things, they were expected to cut out about 2.1 million kilograms of plastic every year. And for us as shoppers, it means we see those changes on the shelf. We can choose bowls made from sugarcane pulp now, wooden cutlery, paper cups, and plates for picnics and things. It's a pretty visible shift in the aisles.
And it all points to this continued strategic direction, doesn't it? Woolworths themselves say they'll keep working right across the business to cut plastic, improve sustainability overall. They made this really ambitious public promise to make 100% of their own brand packaging recyclable, compostable, or reusable. And they set a deadline of the end of 2023 for that. That's a huge commitment. It affects thousands of products.
Very ambitious. So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener, maybe thinking about challenges in your own world?
Our deep dive into Woolworths, it really seems to highlight how being proactive, really listening to your customers,
But-
and showing this clear, ongoing commitment to environmental responsibility, well, it can actually align very well with strong business results.
Mhm.
And that seems to hold true even when a company gets thrown massive curveballs, like, unexpected global events. Yeah, absolutely. What we've seen here is just a really compelling real-world example. Shows how a huge organization can actually implement massive changes. They showed remarkable resilience facing those unexpected crises, but also kept on this clear path towards sustainability. And, knowledge is best when you can understand it and apply it. This case study gives a powerful picture of strategic adaptation in practice.
Definitely. But it leads me to the final thought, maybe for you to chew on as well. Woolworths has made these really ambitious commitments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially that 100% goal for their own brand packaging by end of 2023. What are the sort of inherent complexities, maybe unforeseen challenges for a company that big to actually achieve that goal across everything?
Good question.
And how might those outside forces, things like, is there enough recycling infrastructure? Will consumers actually use the compostable stuff correctly? What about the cost of sustainable materials? How might those things keep influencing these really ambitious targets? Something to consider as we finish up this deep dive.